River crossings are probably some of my favourite parts of four-wheel driving. It doesn't matter whether we're in the Victorian high country, crossing up some of the channels on Fraser Island. There's some great river crossings around and I just love getting the wheels wet. Today we're going to talk about some tips and tricks and basic things if you're going to take on some water crossings, as well as talking about some of the products that really are essential if you're planning on coming across and having a go at some of these river crossings. One of the most common accessories to have fitted to a four-wheel drive is a snorkel. And why wouldn't you? It is cheap insurance. Not only does it offer really nice clean air when you're out on dusty trails from up high, but also when you are doing a river crossing, it gives you protection from getting water ingress into your airbox and into your engine. One piece of advice there, if you are looking at fitting a snorkel, you have to make sure you are getting a proper air and watertight snorkel. Many are just high air intakes and they're just not going to cut it in a river crossing scenario. If water does make its way up and the box is not airtight, it's game over. Unfortunately, one of the most overlooked accessories for vehicles that are going to be doing water crossings are diff breathers. They're basically a snorkel for your diffs. And most cars will actually have a diff breather of some sorts. Now, it might actually just be a one-way breather, which allows just the hot air to escape, or it might in fact be a two-way breather, but the chances are the hose just isn't quite long enough to ensure that you're going to get nice clean air and no water's going to get in. It sits underneath your bonnet and we run air lines down through into your diffs and allow them to breathe easily, both in and out, cooling down and heating up. Within the manifold of the airbox, it's got a nice little air filter in there to make sure that we don't get any dirty air in. The standard ARB diff breather kit, while being a 4-port, is made to do just your front and rear diffs, but with just an extra add-on kit, you can get all the hosing and tubing required to do both your transfer cases and transmission. The problem is, as your hot expanded diff enters icy cold river water, it's going to try and contract really quickly. And what that's going to do is cause a vacuum effect, and it's going to want to suck in to try and replenish that air. If your diff's actually underwater, your axles are underwater, and you've got a one-way valve, it's going to try and suck that air, or in this case water, through the seals and housings of both your diff and your axles. It's not good. You're going to end up with water in your diff housing and you're not going to know about it until you go for your next service, at which time it is way too late and the damage can be catastrophic to your diff. Now while we're here, I thought why not have a little bit of a chat about river crossings, how to approach them, what to do, and some simple tips and tricks if you've not done them before. One of the most important things to do as you approach a river crossing is stop. Get out of your car, turn the engine off. Let the car sit for 5 minutes. We just talked about how hot everything gets. The last thing you should be doing is taking red hot axles and diffs and ploughing them into icy cold river water. So just get out, take some time, take some photos, and now's a really good time to assess the river crossing. You should never go straight to a river crossing that you don't know without really understanding what it is, how long it is, how wide it is, what the substrate's made out of, how fast is the flow going, which direction is the flow coming from. There are so many things to consider here. So my advice is get out and have a look around. In this instance, we've got a really nice rocky base. The water's clear, we can see that the base is rocky. It's running steadily, but not really too fast. I think we're going to be able to just crawl on through it. Just make sure that there's no big obstacles we need to be aware of. You don't want to go bolting into a river like this. The potential of doing damage to your car or getting unstuck just isn't worth it. The other thing to consider is if you're in a manual car, you don't want to be changing gears halfway through. Losing traction and momentum in a river crossing isn't a great idea, and it makes it a lot harder to get yourself going again. You could end up churning up the bottom of the river and getting yourself bogged. Not a great option. Another simple tip is to run your rear diff lock. A river is one of those areas where you're going to get some pretty questionable traction. Soft surfaces, slimy rocks, water, and a lot of undulating surfaces underneath. Running that diff lock means you can guarantee that both tyres are going to be spinning and you're a good chance of pushing your way through any of the obstacles. Additionally, if you haven't already, when you get out of the car, now's a good time to reduce your tyre pressures. You should be running the tyre pressures you would expect to be running on any low range four-wheel drive track. I would expect that to be somewhere between 18 and 24 PSI, depending on your vehicle. So if you come across a river that's either running too fast or murky and you can't see the bottom of it, I highly recommend that you get out and really assess it, very potentially walk it and work out whether it is in fact safe to cross. If you find yourself travelling out here with a few mates and maybe you've come across a river crossing, your car might be a bit smaller, might be a little bit underdone by comparison to your mates and they've got through to the other side, now's a really good time to think about bringing out the snap strap, wrap it around the bull bar, attach it to your recovery point. Make sure you know where the recovery point is on the rear of your mate's vehicle on the other side, so that if you do get into a spot of bother, you can really quickly get someone to come in, grab that snap strap, hook it up and pull you out. The less time you spend in water out of control, the better. Another little tip for when you're assessing a river crossing is to actually look for those white ripples on the surface. Normally what that means is that there's a rock close to the surface underneath, and what that's going to mean is it's going to be a shallower area. Now you have to obviously be careful not to be running over those rocks and make sure that they're not too big, but if you actually look at a river and you can see on one edge a nice little stream of constant white ripples, stay a foot to the side of that and there's a good chance that that's going to be your nicest, shallowest area of the river, and it's the spot you're least likely to come unstuck. Another product to seriously consider for your four-wheel drive if you're doing river crossings is UVP, or under vehicle protection. You see, a rock like this underneath the water, hitting the underbody of your car, maybe your transfer case or your diff housing, it's really going to be quite damaging to the vehicle, and a UVP can be the difference between a crack in one of those cases and sliding over the top of it and getting to the other side. No matter where your next adventure is, remember that your local ARB store is full of four-wheel drive enthusiasts. From river crossings and the right gear that you need, come and have a chat with us, because at ARB, we get it.